Greetings, programs. Welcome to the Tron Lives podcast. I'm Discs of Tron, and I'm joined again by Reedz to talk about the amazing soundtracks behind Tron Evolution and Tron Legacy.
Oh man, I'll just say, get ready. This is definitely a Tron action packed episode because these are like the two soundtracks that we love dearly, especially Legacy. So, I hope you have a glass of energy or whatever user beverage you have because this is going to be a Tron action packed episode.
Indeed, it will. So, let's just get right into it with Tron Evolution.
Okay, literally, for a game that's kind of serves as a promotion to Tron Legacy, it definitely did the work. I mean, I was definitely surprised. I mean, all the music was definitely you got that video game aspect, and so like I put in my notes, so this soundtrack as a whole was a really good start to the era of Flynn's Grid. I mean, of course, you compare it to 82 and 2.0, you just get like the quirky little, computer sounds. But this really, evolution really started to transform Tron into like this huge sci fi, paradise. And it's, yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I love the aesthetic of the grid. It's dark and stormy. Usage of luminescent colors really gives us that futuristic cyberpunk vibe. And the music just great in each setting of the game, creating suspension in several areas and really cool boss battles. And I know one boss battle in particular that we'll probably talk about.
Probably. You mentioned the fact that this is technically the first thing we see of Flynn's Grid, and I find that really funny because you're right, it is. The game came out on November 25th, 2010, like 3 weeks before Legacy was released.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the case for the game that I have in front of me right now on the back says experience the prequel story to Tron Legacy, even though
uh
it came out first, so it's not really a prequel. Uh
but Tron betrayal question mark. I mean,
I mean there's an ad for betrayal in the case.
oh wow, just like how Legacy has an ad for Uprising that I didn't notice until last fall. So,
And that has Beck's concept art suit in it.
oh great. Now I need to go find my Legacy DVD now that you mentioned that.
Sorry.
Well, I can't run out and go grab it.
Well, tell me, who composed Evolution soundtrack?
Okay, so Tron Evolution, although it does have a little bit of aspects of Daft Punk in there, in several scenes, the main composers for Tron Evolution are Sasha Dikaisian, Chris Velasco, and Kevin Manthe. And man, all three composers definitely have done like their other works besides Tron Evolution are amazing. So I'll start with Sasha Dikaisian, who is a German-born composer who goes by the name of Sonic Mayhem. Now that's a pretty radical name. Based off of Los Angeles, his use of organic sound design and electronics brought Tron Evolution to life. Some of his other video game works include Mass Effect 3, Borderlands 2, and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Okay, and then moving on to Chris Velasco, who's an American composer who has been recognized, no pun intended, by IGN, NBC, and the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences for his work in video game music. Some of the other titles besides Tron Evolution are, of course, Mass Effect 3, Overwatch, which I didn't know, Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, and Bloodborne. And finally, on to Kevin Manthe, who is also an American composer who often has written works for TV, films, games, and even commercial. He is a genre bender and a very versatile musician. Many of his works are often story driven and emotional. I mean, yeah, that would definitely got some of that in Evolution. And I was kind of blown away when I was doing research. He actually did the score for Invader Zim. Now that's a huge throwback for me. So some of the other games that he composed were Shrek 2, the video game, Disney Infinity 2.
Masterpiece.
Yep, Disney Infinity 2.0, and
Love that
Ultimate
game.
Spider-Man.
Wow, those are like some very solid games. All three of them.
I know. And then
And
here
the
all
score's a huge part of that.
No, and all three of them worked on Tron Evolution. Like we definitely got like each style of these three composers, and they work so well with Tron.
Definitely. Before we get into talking about the individual tracks, I do want to mention that the most I guess famous way to listen to the soundtrack is on YouTube. On a playlist that just calls it Tron Evolution OST track 1, 2, 3, etc. Um Reeds and I listen to it on the YouTube channel Original Game Scores, which gives track names for every track.
Yes.
That will be linked down in the show notes for those of you who want that. But so when we say track titles, you aren't confused.
Yeah, and they are in no particular order as well. So, technically, a soundtrack would be in chronological order, but this specific YouTube video has them out of order because Sentry what like the first like Sentry battle actually doesn't appear until later in the video. So yeah.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, so honestly, I was a huge fan of the trailer, and I didn't know it had music to it. Cause I mean, I used like the Sentry fight against Tron as one of my backgrounds. So just hearing this Outlands opening, it just the usage of arpeggios really just really builds the hype for Tron Evolution.
Definitely. I don't want to say it gives the same vibes as Daft Punk's track name Outlands, but it kind of does.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I were to walk into just a club and like, if they're playing a lot of techno music, this would probably be one of the first few tracks that comes on.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. What were some tracks that stood out?
Okay, Abraxas. Okay, I'll start with Abraxas because he's got a couple of tracks here, and I did an analysis on my Instagram of the first Abraxas fight. So So like at the 15 minute 19-second mark of the video is the first Abraxas fight, which is in D minor, which ironically most of the Tron villains, sorry MCP, are in this key. You'll get to see more of it with Clue in Tron Legacy and General Tessler in Uprising. So in my notes, I put "It's your time, embrace it," or in this case, you watching listening right now, it's your time, embrace Tron action. This definitely has a lot of pedal tones within the bass, but it really gives the key away instantly because you listen down to the bass, it's right there. So this is the start of Tron Evolution's main rhythmic motive, which is a set of eighth notes, which is a possible 5-note scale that I have written down, which involves, in this case in D minor. So it's D, F, A, B flat, so with the minor second, and then D, B flat, A, F, and D. And it kind of just repeats throughout the track. And eventually with some of the tracks, you'll get to hear it again, you'll hear it variated, and of course it does modulate occasionally to C minor as well.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah. Also, I was actually a bit surprised with the Braxis's music because I know Abraxas. Wow. Okay, I can't words apparently. Abraxas um, is actually based off of a DOS virus that when you hear it, it just creates this broken G chromatic chord and it goes to the highest frequency until your ears get just damaged. So yeah, really Evolution has that mix where you get the obvious ambient tracks and then you get these really cool, the cool fighting music with the Braxis and the tanks.
As we've learned from watching me play it, I suck at the tank parts of the game, but I can't deny that the music is amazing on them. So
Even though the music stopped kind of midway because you were still dealing. I
it's
Yeah. I mean, I actually put in my notes tank trouble because I'm just all like, oh, I remember that from the stream.
Same. Doesn't mean it was fun.
Nope. Okay, so what stood out to you with an evolution?
Um, well, I told you this before we started recording. I just I had the opposite thing with 2.0, where with 2.0 I was constantly like, "Oh my gosh, how is this a video game score? It's amazing." For this one, for some reason I kept thinking it must have been for like a TV show or a film, but I keep going, "Man, this sounds like a video game soundtrack." And then I would remember like 2 seconds later, "Oh wait, it is a video game soundtrack." Um, but the ambient tracks really were the ones I would think that for. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not. I'm not saying they're bad or anything. They're amazing. Um, it's like really good background music. Um, but we already talked about the Abraxas ones, so I want to go back to that.
Yeah,
I
go
think
for
the
it.
light cycle ones are amazing.
Yes.
I mean, the first light cycle segment of the game plays "Deraz" by Daft Punk. Um, that's not what I'm referring to though. I'm referring to the two original light cycle tracks composed for this game. And it's just epic. The first one plays when Anon is heading to the game grid to meet Gibson, and the second one, I'm trying to remember. There's a few light cycle segments throughout the game, so it's in one of them. It's what I can tell you.
Yeah, let's see. I'm pretty sure it's after we get after Anon gets meets with Flynn.
When he's heading to Clue to
Yeah.
rescue Cora.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because it was either that or it was when he and Gibson were running away from Anon. I mean, from Abraxas, not from Anon. Um, from Abraxas, and that one, I'm pretty sure, is an Abraxas track, not a light bike track.
Yeah, I wrote here on like on the track notes that I had two light cycle tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure the one that you're mentioning is the second one, which I have written as like it's an A minor. And of course, because of it being fast, because speed, because light cycles.
Well, the speed particularly, because in that segment of the game, you're driving the Encom 786, which is notoriously known as the fastest bike on the grid.
Exactly.
I think that Arja City, all of its tracks are just so different from the rest of the game. But like they're still the same because it's all in the grid. But they show the difference in the ISOs to the basics in a really good way.
Yeah, and it's all nice and calming too. Like compared to Tron City, when the infected programs hit and there's all this, intense fight music comes in. And then when you're in Arja, like for the first half before the first half of Arja, it's so nice.
Yeah, even though you're like having to kill guards on your way, it's just feels chill.
Yeah, no worry. The sentries are no problem. Let a non-cruise through Arja City with no problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like most of the ambient tracks, honestly, I would like to put them in a playlist by themselves, especially the spiritual tracks that Evolution has. Like
Yes.
especially during, I guess, spiritual one, which is the Solar Sailor arrival area. Man, like I wrote Zen, like this is straight up Zen, like the Zen thing, man. Just the beautiful
I was
eight,
about to say that.
just the 8 octave jumps, and honestly, it almost feels like I can meditate to this music. So
That would not mess with Flynn's Zen thing, is
you,
what you're saying.
yes,
It is the anti Sam.
you never mess with his Zen thing unless if you're Sam Flynn, which we'll get to later in Legacy when we talk about Legacy.
Yes.
Let's see. Going back to the Abraxas track, I guess this is towards the basically the final battle of the game. So like this track is called End of Everything, Tron End of Everything. And I'll just say I think this is like the best like hybrid mix of synth and we get a little bit of electric guitar, and I was just blown away.
Yes, I remember hearing that track when I played through the game for the first time. Because I went into the game like mostly blind. I knew the plot details, but I hadn't seen any of it. And um, when I got to that, I just went, I don't want to fight Abraxas. I want to just vibe to this music.
Yeah, and Clue is constant screaming and complaining that Anon hasn't been duressed yet. Kind of does take away the
Yeah,
beautifulness of the
just a little
music.
bit. Just a little bit, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely, there's like a mixture of primary keys for Evolution. Most of it I got was D minor, which was surprisingly just because it's usually part of Abraxas's theme and such. But it kind of works with the synth that each of the three composers used for this game, and honestly, it's beautiful for a game that's it's pretty old by now.
Yeah, it's like it's 11. It's
11, yeah.
almost 11. I had to math really quick, even though 10 to 21 isn't hard.
It's the brain's just like
I'm thinking of music, not
not math. The math
video
the
games.
math can stay over there with 82 if I wanted to analyze the grid matrix. Nah. We don't need that.
Exactly. Exactly.
I actually kind of made this joke when I was writing my notes, with all the viruses, with all the infected programs and stuff. I was all like, at least Flynn's grid didn't have as many errors compared to Cyberpunk 2077 because oh boy, that game had a lot of bugs. I mean, I'm pretty sure Kevin Flynn probably wouldn't be able to fix that game at all. He
I
probably
don't think he could, no. I mean, think of how many grid bugs we saw throughout Uprising. You can't stop that.
they probably left that grid and just went specifically to Cyberpunk.
Yep. Uh, it's exactly what happened.
Yep.
I promise we're definitely a legitimate source on that's why the game has so many bugs.
Yeah, they got grid bugged.
Okay, that's the one. That's the one that got me.
Yep. Oh, let's see. Any kind of final thoughts on evolution? Because I know legacy is definitely gonna be where we like kind of go off about how
Yeah,
beautiful it
we're
is.
gonna both have a lot to say on Legacy. Um, I think Evolution is a perfect prelude to Legacy in terms of the music, of course. And it sets up what you're about to go into for Daft Punk's music, but it also stands very strong on its own. Like you were talking about all the amazing work these composers have done. Um, and so I have no doubt that this soundtrack holds up just as well as 82 2.0 Legacy and Uprising.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, evolution definitely was a good like hype builder for Tron Legacy since it did come out a few weeks before. So just adding, being introduced to the grid just really built the hype for like all of us Tron fans to look forward to watching Legacy. And the music definitely did justice here. You know, without these three composers, it's almost like if you think about it, almost like a progress bar. So, they were really at like, 99%. And then when the 100% hits, then Daft Punk, came in and just turned Legacy into a masterpiece. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, ready to move on to the fun part?
Yes.
No, just kidding, just kidding. Evolution's fun,
Yeah.
but like, now we're getting good.
Yeah.
Now to talk about Tron Legacy. I have a fun anecdote that I was telling you about yesterday before we get into the music itself. And when Daft Punk was working on this score, originally Hans Zimmer was to be their orchestrator for the film. Um, and if you don't know what an orchestrator is, basically they take the basic idea that Daft Punk had and adapts it for an orchestra to play. And Hans Zimmer wanted to change a lot of the score, so Daft Punk respectfully went to Disney and asked for him to be removed from the project. And Hans Zimmer wasn't upset about it or anything. He actually recommended Joseph Trapanese to be the orchestrator for the film, which he did, and then he ended up doing the score for Tron Uprising as well.
Yeah. Basically, Disney gave him the band hammer.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, so many people, I know so many people went to see Tron Legacy because of Daft Punk's score. And that's because, I mean, 2010 was just, in my mind, I'm pretty sure it was like the height of Daft Punk's popularity.
Yes, I agree.
So when it was heard they were doing a film score, a lot of people were intrigued. And then the trailers for Legacy just proved, oh, they know what they're doing. And a lot of Tron fans came from that. I know a lot of people who are huge Daft Punk fans, and by extension are Tron fans.
Yep.
And that's a testament to how amazing this score is, and also how amazing Legacy is.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this soundtrack should have won an award. And, I'm
It
surprised.
was nominated.
Yeah, I just wish, it could have won because it was just beautiful. I mean,
And I wish Daft Punk had done more film scores afterward.
I know, like,
Very low chance of that happening now.
I'm honestly, I was a mess seeing their official, like, their official breakup. Like, I actually started bawling when I was on the phone with somebody while watching the video, and I was a mess. Like, I couldn't even think straight that day. I'm like, oh my god, like Daft Punk just broke up. And I'm just here like, okay, I need to go listen to the Tron Legacy soundtrack. I need to calm myself down. But oh man, they just did such an amazing job with this movie. And of course with the
Oh,
orchestration
definitely.
by Joseph Trapanese, like, man, this is the pure like masterpiece of mixing, combo, and synth. Of course, you go back to Wendy Carlos and Nathan Grigg. You know, this is where this is like the final product, and it's definitely a masterpiece.
For sure. For Tron Legacy's 10th anniversary, they released a new version of the soundtrack called the Complete Edition. It's available on all streaming platforms. And it adds 7 songs to the end of it that previously there were only there were only 22 tracks on the soundtrack ending with finale. Um and then these 7 tracks were split up across other streaming services for music and everything. But to celebrate Legacy's 10th anniversary, they put them all into one album. And these tracks were Sea of Simulation, Encom Part 1 and Part 2, Round 1, Caster, Reflections, Sunrise Prelude, Father and Son, and Outlands Part 2. All of which are amazing tracks, and I'm sad that I couldn't listen to them earlier. Particularly Outlands Part 2. That's one of my favorites.
I love Outlands Part 2. Interesting enough, there's actually I listened to another version of Tron Legacy, which is the Metro Tokyo edition, which included several other tracks that basically I was able to kind of create character suites because of the Metro Tokyo edition. So like like the whole like Sam meets Clue scene in like the first time they meet, that track is called Not Your Father. And then you have Challenge of the Grid, Your Move, Flynn, The Boy and Flynn Are Gone, Enjoy the Drink, and of course, Rare Bird. So, I mean, there's a couple of I created a character suite for Clue because of course he's one of my favorite characters. So, because not only that, this track is or this soundtrack is nothing but mastery and perfection. Literally.
Mm-hmm. Something to be said about the Metro Tokyo edition is like it isn't an official version of the soundtrack. It was a Blu-ray rip of the music tracks, and then it was split up into tracks. And it's not to take away from it because it is truly just the music from the film, but don't go searching on Amazon for it or anything because you
Mm-hmm.
aren't gonna find a copy.
Yeah, I mean, just go search it up on YouTube. I know there is a couple of playlists that include them.
Yeah.
Include them. Okay. I'm done punning for today.
Oh no! What about Tronaction?
Well, Tron action's acceptable.
Okay. So let's get right into it. Overture is just a great intro to the album. It's not an intro to the film though. Wait,
I wish.
my brain is breaking. The grid plays first, right?
Yes, the grid plays first.
Okay, I just had to make sure. I was like, am I being stupid with one of my favorite films?
Oh, you're good. No, it's
Yeah,
it, it,
so
it is the grid that starts first.
okay. So we open with the grid and Jeff Bridges' narration of it, which just it perfectly sets up the film you are about to watch. Um Daft Punk, they just start showing off immediately.
Yeah.
It's I have no other way to put it. It's just that simple.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we were all honestly, we all kind of like were on the same page as young Sam throughout this narration as the grid was playing. It was just amazing. And just after, he says, that's right, man. I got in. And just that melody, that main melody of Tron Legacy appearing through between those skyscrapers. Oh man. Like that was amazing. Like immediately I knew this was gonna be a good movie and a good soundtrack.
Mhm. The one of my favorite tracks, and it was my favorite track for a long time, was Son of Flynn. Um it just always hypes me up whenever I listen to it.
Yeah, I like Son of Flynn. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of I mean, Sam definitely had a lot of good tracks here. I mean, I also like when I did my analysis on Instagram, I included the some of the reconfigured soundtrack because my favorite version of Son of Flynn is the KI Theory remix. And it just builds the hype. And I am a big fan of dominant prolongation, which is, just a huge like, elongated expression of the five chord of the key. So yeah, I
Mhm.
I love Son of Flynn. It's just great. I feel like at night just driving out, just listening to this track, it just really sets the vibe.
Yeah. I could go track by track through this and like tell you why it fits the scene perfectly. We're not going to do that because then we would be here for another hour.
Oh yeah.
So cuz I have a lot to say about most of these tracks.
Same.
So, Reed, let's just go through some highlights.
Okay, I guess recognizer. So immediately when Sam enters the grid, great intro, the recognizer, and we got to talk about the perfect timing about this movie because the music just fits in so well, and you'll get to see it. I'll definitely talk about it when we get to Disc Wars, but yes, recognizer is honestly an amazing track, just like the orchestra in the beginning.
Mhm. It perfectly exemplifies Sam's emotions when entering the grid, and it's also a great setup to Clue's forces.
Yep.
To it sets their mood and it shows what Sam's thinking, and it's just amazing. I don't know how many times I'm gonna say that, but
All right, Armory. This is the first time we get a track in C minor. Kind of referencing evolution there. So yeah, I just like this whole kind of ambience that it gives when Sam's getting his grid suit.
yeah, it gives a strange ambience, which contrasts with like the panic that Sam is feeling, the panic and
Hmm.
confusion in his mind. Because he's like, what the frick is happening? And the music just playing is calm as the sirens are doing their thing. It almost makes me feel like that music is being played in universe in the armory.
Yes.
And it's just like background noise as the grid is talking about going on the identity disc monologue that I guess Flynn just committed to memory and then programmed it in as some sort of sick joke.
Les Clue yoinked it from his memories.
I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Arena's good, but let's get into Rinsler because
Oh
it's
man.
amazing. It's amazing.
Wow. Okay. So I put here on my notes that, it really has this pedal tone on a very low E3 and, just really creates that suspension. Like I guess the purring noise that Rinsler makes kind of fits the kind of fits that track. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just a great introduction to honestly one of the best characters in Tron Legacy.
Yeah, I mean his name isn't in the title though, so
I mean,
there's only so much Tron action you can do with totally not Tron.
I mean,
So
Rinsler action, of course.
yeah, Rensler action. Um, I mean, Rinsler was introduced as a force to be reckoned with. It is sad we didn't see more of him, but that's beside the point. When we see him do the double discs, it's just a moment of, oh crap. I mean, Sam 100% would have died
Yeah.
if he didn't start bleeding.
Why did I have
Freaking
a feeling
coward.
I just got dunked on?
But then he meets Clue and gets thrown onto the light cycle grid where my favorite track plays. This game has changed. Is my absolute favorite track. It is the one I will blast at full volume until the end of time.
Same, honestly.
And just the way it opens, and it opens soft, slowly crescendos, and then just boom. You're fully into it.
Yeah, and the perfect timing it has too when Clue and like the sentries derez parts of Sam's team, they it hits right on the downbeat of like the next phrase whenever one of them gets derez, and it's just so cool. Again, perfect timing did this movie justice.
That's something I love in films is when they do things on beat with the score or when they edit on the score.
Yes.
It's such a good thing. And I've seen films where they do it like just off enough that it's noticeable and really bugs me.
Uh, I don't know. I feel like Legacy just did it so well. It just fits. It kind of just fits with the whole scene.
And then Cora rescues Sam and we get Outlands Part 1, which is a good track. Nowhere near as amazing as Outlands Part 2. But it's good. It's good. He meets he sees his dad again, and we get into a flashback where we hear Adagio for Tron. I assume you have something to say on this track.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we always make this joke where we say, Mathria, play Adagio for Tron. But yeah, this track really hits in the feels. I really like the key selection here, which is either C sharp or D flat major. And it just really gives us that, feeling like, this is a Tron movie. What happened to Tron? So, with the help of Flynn's narration, it really brings this track to life. And of course,
yeah.
With the cello solo that plays right at the, with the last phrase of the track, it just, I honestly want to cry because, with the solo like that, talking about, after seeing, Clue like slam his disc down on Tron, like, I want to cry because, he's a hero.
So I'm assuming this isn't the part where I give my unpopular opinion that I think the track is slightly overrated. Let me defend myself, listeners, before you just start like sending me hate messages. I'm just kidding, you guys are maybe you won't do that. But I feel like everyone, whenever they talk about this, they'll be like, oh yeah, the light cycles and stuff were cool, but have you listened to Adagio for Tron? It's just the best thing ever. I'm not trying to discredit how amazing it is, because like we've said, every track on here is a masterpiece. But when it's all anyone talks about, it gets annoying for me when there's so many other amazing tracks, but they just focus on that one specifically.
Yeah.
So that has left a bad impression on the track for me. But that's all the defense I have, so if you still want to come at me, I can't really stop
you. Just settle it in the game grid, okay?
you.
I mean, it's one of my favorite tracks, but is it like my like all-time favorite track? Not it's there, but it's not the track.
I mean, Nocturne is very, very good. Um, it feels almost like an extension of Adagio for Tron in a way.
Yeah, but it kind of leans more towards the Flynn perspective. And just it was more orchestra heavy, but it kind of just fits because almost like you're dealing with user dialogue, dialogue of the users, so it kind of fits.
And then we get into the trio of club tracks because I'm including
Yes,
Caster in this. We have
yes.
End of Line, Caster, and Derezed, and all three of them are amazing, and you should listen to them right now. I'm kidding. Let us finish, then go listen to them. But End of Line was my favorite track for a long time, and then I heard Caster, and that became my favorite for a while. But I already said we're on Game has Changed right now. But End of Line, well, one, it's a reference in the name, which we all appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And it, I mean, it's part of the film where we get the Daft Punk cameo and the Bartik cameo.
Yep.
So it's just an important part of the film in general. But the track itself, it totally feels like something that would be played in a club to me.
Oh yeah, and I'm pretty sure it has been played at clubs and we just don't know. I mean, I went to a baseball game once and someone's away team theme was End of Line and it was actually pretty cool and I was all like, "Hey, wait a minute."
Some, and then technically Outlands Part 2 is the next track in the film, but I have a long thing for that, so we're just gonna continue with the club ones for a bit. We have Caster, which gives the same sort of vibes, like could totally be played in a club, but it feels, I guess, more private to like symbolize the private conversation Sam and Zuza are having at the moment.
Mhm.
And then the Black Guards crash the party, and Daft Punk decides it's the perfect time for a track change. And then we hear Derez, which is probably, I don't know, Adagio for Tron, Son of Flynn, and Derez are probably the most famous tracks.
I agree.
So a lot of people know Derez. Um, and it's amazing. It's a great action scene track. Once again, it feels like it could be played in a club. And then I just get the image of Cora stabbing people with a bite blade, and
Yeah.
can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, going back to End of Line, I actually use this track to warm up like whenever I'm getting ready to do like a full run through of some of my music. So I always use it as a long tone warm up just because like it's so metronomical too. So it kind of helps me keep a beat while I'm practicing.
I do the same thing with Son of Flynn, ironically. I don't know. These tracks are very good for warm ups, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly Daft Punk in general, I just love how a lot of their music kind of has a built-in metronome. So it works with you know, any of like your like practice exercises. Like I use Lose Yourself to Dance for like my 5-minute warm up and then I warm down with End of Line. So yeah.
But now to talk about Outlands Part 2, which
Oh
is
man, I love this track.
definitely one of my favorite tracks. I don't know what's different about it from Outlands Part 1, like in terms of why I get chills from Part 2 and I don't from Part 1, but it's so freaking good.
Yeah, Outlands Part 2 was great. When they released the complete edition, I this was the first track I wanted to listen to just because I like that whole like synth organ kind of vibe when the scene shifts to chorus reflection in the water. Like, oh man, it was amazing.
It's just an awesome track. It really is. There's not enough I can say about it to make you just go listen to it on repeat.
Yeah.
So your list for when this podcast is over. Go listen to End of Line Caster and Derezzed in that order, and then put Outlands Part 2 on repeat forever.
Yeah.
Um,
Like if you go to a party, make sure those are the primary tracks that you put on the party playlist because yeah, that's how you get the whole place jamming.
for sure, yes. Then we have Fall, very aptly named. Um, from when the elevator is falling and you're messing with my Zen thing, man.
Yep.
Um, it's a good track. Then we have Solar Sailor, which ironically is not the track that takes place on the Solar Sailor. That is Sea of Simulation.
Yep.
Also very good, but I'm not gonna say it anymore because I've said that for all of them.
I mean, Solar Sailor definitely is really ambient. I mean, I've seen people made like 1 hour tracks. I mean, this is a good one to have on repeat for studying.
Mm-hmm. Then we have the exact opposite with Rectifier.
Ah,
Rectifier kind of gives me a bit of espionage vibes, like at the beginning. Not a lot, but it's there.
nah, every time this track appears on my Spotify, like immediately I start quoting Clue's speech. Like no no doubt. And I have it on his character suite too because I was just like, yes. Like it was great.
Then we have another track that confused me when I was first listening to this track. I mean, to this soundtrack. Disc Wars, which I thought,
Was
shouldn't
Arena.
that have been up there with Arena and
Yeah.
Rensler and everything? And then I realized, oh wait, it's referring to the one, this part of the film. Yes.
Yeah, you're
Um,
not the only one. I knew I made that mistake too. So
for like a month, I thought it was just in the wrong place until someone corrected me, and I went, oh yeah, you're right.
yeah. Now this is another one where the perfect timing was great. Like after, Sam defeats those two sentries on the throne ship, throws Jarvis aside, grabs Flynn's disc, and right as he grabs the disc, it just changes into this, as the siren, the alarms go off and just the change in the music. It was great. Like that honestly was the best out of the perfect time tracks in Legacy.
Mm-hmm. We have Clue, which plays a lot during the film.
This is my favorite track, so I am going to go off about it because it is
Go right on ahead.
okay. This is kind of the most kind of clever thing when it comes to Disney movies because you give the villain a really good theme and they're going to have a really good theme. Like they really gave Clue a lot of brass and just all this fanfaric stuff because he's the evil grid tyrant. He's got to have a cool theme. But yeah, I honestly love this track. Like and of course his character motive throughout definitely like shines here in this specific track. And like here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like with Clue's like theme and of course his main like rhythmic motif, like honestly, I would want my own theme just so I want to be able just to slap, a whole bowl of silver apples across the table, you know what I'm saying?
I do know exactly what you're saying, and that makes it better.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my music, vocab for this episode. So, I've been talking about suites. So, this is like a movement of an ordered set of pieces or movements that are tied together by themes or tonalities. So, of course, Clue, Sam, and Kevin Flynn do have character suites based on all like the Tron Legacy tracks, like the complete edition as well as the Metro Tokyo edition. So, yeah. And of course, because of finding after discovering the Metro Tokyo edition, yeah, Clue's definitely one of my favorite villains just because his theme's pretty radical, man.
This is definitely true. When I was editing my fan made Clue TV spot, I was using Clue for the music track in it, and the scene I decided to use at the end of the trailer after the title card was the "You're Clue, I am Clue, you're to create the perfect system" scene.
Yep.
And um and in that scene, as I was editing it, I realized, oh, it plays Clue in this part. That's kind of awkward.
Uh,
So I just muted the rest of the scene that wasn't the dialogue. Because otherwise it just sounded really weird.
oh no. All right, so Arrival. A more ambient track, and I like the dialogue. This is also one of my favorite, character interactions too, with this track in the background. Oh man, Flint's perfection quote was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And you really think for a second that Clue may just snap out of it.
No.
He might. And then, nope. But it's okay because they, they just swapped discs and it worked out.
We didn't get
I
the
mean, I
hug.
still think giving him. I still think Cora's disc may have been a little too risky since she was the last ISO.
Yeah.
But should have done Sam's. But whatever, they didn't ask me for my input on their plan. So,
Man, if only, just a simple hug and, that's it. But of course, because of Clue's programming, he can't really, go against his programming.
mm-hmm. If only Cyrus had detonated that EMP.
No, no, no.
Dang, that would have killed everyone. It would have been very sad.
We are not in
Um,
uprising yet, all right?
sorry. um, we have Flynn Lives, another track name. That's a reference.
And
Very
yeah,
happy.
this one's up there on my favorites list too. It just
Mm-hmm.
Flint's rhythmic motif reappears in this, and it's just great. And again, it's more orchestra heavy, but it just fits. And every time I hear him say goodbye, kiddo, I do shed a couple of tears because this is also like it's such a really cool track, but the scenes that and then that's when the emotion just hits. You're like,
Yeah, just like no, no, I'm sad. Why you do this to me?
like I'm
Um,
I'm not supposed to cry. This is such a really good track, man.
mm-hmm. Then we have Sunrise Prelude, and now I'm looking at the tracks that we forgot to talk about, and we'll circle back around. But um, I mean, good track to end the film on because it's peaceful, ambient, leaves room for the future, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I just love Sunrise Prelude. Just like how I said with Son of Flynn, this is like just a good song to listen to while you're driving. It just really sets the mood.
Makes you want to hook your car up with EL wire.
Yes.
Um, then we have end titles. Woo! Um, really good track. I don't talk about this often, but I love the opening credits. I mean, not opening. I love the credits of Legacy. Just looks really cool.
Yeah, it's almost just basically just a remix of Kevin Flynn of like the main theme. I mean, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like this one more than the reconfigured remix of end titles. I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
more stable, I guess you could say.
I mean, for a majority of the tracks, I prefer the normal version over the reconfigured version. But the reconfigured version has a lot of really cool parts to it.
Yep. Like, of course, I'll keep talking about the KI Theory remix for days. Like, but yeah. And then finale, which plays, I guess, during the latter of the credits. I can't remember because
I know, I also can't remember it.
I'm pretty sure this plays while the like I guess towards the latter while the credits are still rolling, and it's really
Yeah.
beautiful. Again, this is more orchestra heavy, and then of course you get the whole main melody in C minor, and yeah, it's really pretty. You get the melody, and of course you get a bit of Sunrise Prelude towards the end. So it's it's just a really nice conclusion to the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. There were 5 tracks that we forgot to mention, which we'll just speed through really quick.
Yeah.
We have the 2 NCOM tracks. NCOM Part 1 is neat. NCOM Part 2 is where it's at.
Yes.
That one has all the espionage vibes for me. And I don't know, I love me a good spy film, and that turns Tron into a spy film for like a second.
Yeah, even though Sam's not really good at being a spy because he got
I
caught by
mean,
the
he sucks
police.
at it, but yeah, but then he jumped off a building, so it works
Yeah,
out.
he already had a parachute in mind. The taxi driver did not like him. Like,
Did not appreciate it.
no.
We have round one, which I can't really remember specifics about it.
So this is when this was the first round that first round in
Yeah,
Disc Wars, and of course, Sam notices the program he's against. I got a 3-inch version of you on my shelf.
yeah, and then we go to the next arena over and see the slow mo disc,
Yeah.
D-Res, the fun stuff.
Oh, the derezzing was so clean in Legacy. Just the motion, the motion throughout that scene was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Great CG. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the CG more in depth in the future, but like the de-resing in Legacy is just so
Yes.
clean.
Let's see.
Let's see. We have reflections that we didn't talk about,
I
which
referenced it
is
because of
yeah,
the
you
whole.
referenced it with the apples, but that one has the pieces of Clue in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's mostly just Clue extended edition. So,
Yeah, it's kind of more like almost like a prelude, because everything is, everything is so almost a pedal tone on low on D. So, and of course, and it's such a like a quiet scene because he's taking a look at Flynn's hideout and stuff, and of course Jarvis decides to be a buzzkill and drop some stuff, and but yeah, this track is beautiful, and we kind of get a little section of his backstory, and then of course he gets mad and just slaps the apples across the table.
mm-hmm. And then the last one, we mentioned it like a little bit, but Father and Son, very good track.
Oh man, I don't know why this one kind of makes me cry right at the beginning, just because you're here, you're finally here. Like, oh god, now
Oh
I'm
no, don't
even
do that to me.
I'm even like I can feel myself crying. Like, no, I mean we're almost done, but I okay, great. Now I
Because
can't
it's
believe.
like Flynn is happy at seeing him and then realizes, wait, if you're here, then the portal's open. That's not good. Um,
Oh
and
man.
oh,
No,
it's such a good scene.
it's such a good scene. Anytime when you get a piano in there, I mean, there's no doubt you're gonna cry. Like I am on the fence of crying right now every time because I think of that scene.
well, while you take a minute to compose yourself, I can't. I'll do
Wow. Okay, and
final
I
thoughts.
thought I was the one done punning. Okay.
That wasn't meant to be a pun, but it was totally now. For sure. But let's do final thoughts. I mean, I don't know how many times we can say it, but the entire thing is just a masterpiece in composing and everything. There's a reason over 10 years later, so many people still listen to this soundtrack.
I mean, we
Um,
we still do. So
yeah. um, there's a lot here, for sure, that you can do. And Daft Punk just took the opportunity to the max.
yeah. I honestly, Tron Legacy is my all-time favorite movie, my all-time favorite soundtrack. I mean, honestly, this has it all. I mean, Daft Punk with the orchestration of Joseph Trapani is like this was outstanding. Like I can't even put this to words because for a movie that's almost about to turn 11 in a couple of months, this is honestly still good. I mean, it's a movie that we shouldn't have deserved, but man, just the music, the whole vibe of the grid, like man, it's amazing. And with all the tracks that we're missing, like technically we don't have a complete edition because there's some tracks from the Metro Tokyo edition that I wish that were also added. So maybe for the 15th anniversary of Tron Legacy, maybe we'll get, some more the true complete edition, the perfected edition. So yep, and of course, we're after Legacy and Uprising, we are still waiting and waiting for more Tron content each year because we need more Tron action. Like what else? What else are we
Yeah.
supposed to do?
Whoever scores Tron 3, and I really hope it's Joseph Trapanese, for reasons we'll get into when we talk about Uprising, they have big shoes to fill here. Like,
Yes.
as much as we gushed over Wendy Carlos's score last episode, Daft Punk is just so much better. It's just on a completely different level. And whoever does Tron 3, I wish you the best of luck. And I have no doubt you'll do an amazing job. Speaking that into life right now.
Yep. As Jem said to Sam before he entered the Discord arena, survive.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And remember, Tron lives.
We hope you have a pleasant cycle, programs.